Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. We're back at it again, and we're going to get on into it. But before we do, as always, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. And with that being said, here's a quick word from our sponsors. Organic herbs and botanicals, skincare and edibles, wellness for body and mind. The Brothers Apothecary. Fine teas and remedies. Ronald Records. From indie gems to classic hits, discover the heart of local music. With live shows all the time, up close and personal, and regular releases on their in-house label. Ronald Records. Supporting the community, one track at a time. All right, thank you all so much for watching. Again, shout out The Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get on into it. Here is today's guest.
Hi, I'm notmilky.
Hello. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about, who you are, where you're from, what you do, give us that Tinder profile of your involvement with music.
Okay, well, I'm based in Seattle, Washington right now, but I'm actually originally from Los Angeles, the county of Los Angeles, specifically the San Fernando Valley. And I make, if I were to put it into a genre, I make experimental bedroom pop.
Okay.
Yes.
And I'm from California myself.
Oh, really?
What brought you up here initially?
So I was actually a math teacher, and they pay teachers better in Washington, I found out. And I had visited a couple times, and I really liked it. So I decided that, and I also just really wanted a change.
That's right. Yeah, trust me, I get that for sure. And then what got you into music initially?
Well, I've been playing piano since I was 5. I was classically trained, so I loved it, but I was also told that I must play and practice. So
I get that.
There were moments where I didn't enjoy having to do it so consistently, but I'm super grateful about it now. And I'm glad I kept up with it. And then, so I played piano for a long time. And then in 6th grade, I joined orchestra and I played the cello. And I had played cello since then. I was really into classical music. I played in orchestras. My first gig as a musician was a job at a church where one of my best friends, who's actually going to be on my upcoming release, he plays violin, and we were in a little quartet for this Korean church.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that was my first gig as a musician. But I had a lot of different things going on. So I was playing cello and piano mostly, and then I picked up the guitar when I was in middle school. My parents got me a guitar, but I didn't really get into it until college. In high school, I did start playing bass, and then I got more into guitar and bass in college. And then I kind of always was songwriting, I guess, in a way. And then eventually, when I was in San Diego for college, I joined this. I felt compelled to join a band because I realized that I needed music in my life.
Yeah. Well, and at this point, you had so much knowledge of so many instruments.
Yeah.
Too.
So I was thinking to myself, I need to let myself go all in with music in some form. So I joined this band, and I think the guitarist was a part of this pretty well-known punk band. I think it's the Zeros, maybe. But he was really nice, and we played a couple times, pre-practice together, and I had a great time. But I had to move to Japan, I thought. And so it was this whole thing where I basically packed everything up and moved to Japan. And I had this idea then that I was going to focus on music. And then I found out I was pregnant. And so that kind of shifted gears. And then I became a teacher. But music I didn't put music on hold. It just wasn't, I had to have an income. So yeah. I had to focus on that. But music was still very important to me. And then maybe, I think it was in 2022 that I decided, it was kind of how you were telling me earlier about your idea where you had for this podcast and you kind of ran with it. I was driving and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I want to make music. Okay, so sorry. I have to preface this by saying that it has always been, especially as a mom, hard to join a band, and because it requires a lot of planning, a lot of timing, a lot of different schedules coming together.
Either late nights or weekends kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And as a mom, I'm not going to be doing late nights, So it dawned on me when I was driving one day, I thought to myself, I don't need a whole band. I need somebody who can make beats for me that I like, excuse me, that I could work with and we could create something that we're both happy with. And then I remembered a friend that I've had since middle school that we kind of like lost touch, but I knew that he made beats. And so his name is Tim. He goes by Sir Always. And so I hit him up and basically he sent me a bunch of beats that he had never shown to anybody. And so I was super excited. He was excited. And I recorded at a studio in North Hollywood, I think, or actually it might have been Canoga Park, but I think they're based in North Hollywood. But so when I showed up to the studio, okay, I'm getting really deep into this.
You're all right.
So when I showed up to the studio, I just tell this story because it's so crazy to me. So I show up to the studio with meeting a friend who is a producer who I went to middle school with, and when I walked into the studio, there was somebody sitting in the chair, the engineer, and he turns around and he's like, "Hey, do you remember me? We went to kindergarten together." And I was
what a small world
thrown off.
Yeah.
Because not only did we go to kindergarten together, he was my first crush in my whole life. And so, I mean, that doesn't mean anything except that was adorable. And I really felt I have this suspicion that the universe sends me these little signs that this is the direction I should be moving in. And it's always with coincidences. And so I felt super, I don't know. I felt like I was in the right path.
It was very serendipitous.
Yes, exactly. So basically that's how I started becoming a recording artist. Gotcha. And then, so that was 2022. And then last year, I had always been working on Logic X Pro. And then last year I had been recording vocals, right? And then, so sorry.
You're fine.
Last year I was so determined to learn how to make beats on Logic Pro, but it just wasn't clicking. And then finally at the beginning of this year, I don't even remember. I sat down on my computer and I opened it up and I just knew what to do. I knew how to do it. And it was so weird. I thought to myself, I can't think too hard. I just got to keep going, Okay. And I started making my own beats and it was so exciting. It is so exciting. I'm still amazed that I can create music that is not just from my voice, Oh
yeah. Well, that's awesome. And a very detailed introduction. I appreciate that. And we'll get into a little bit more of what you do with music in the present day in just a moment. But before we do, I have a couple foundations I like to check in. Foundation questions I like to check in with everybody on. And this first one, it's one we ask early, it's one we ask often, and it's definitely a crowd favorite. What was the first album you ever bought with your own money?
With my own money. It was Black Sabbath, the self-titled album. So the first album.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. That's a rad first choice.
Yeah, that was in middle school, I think. I mean, There were other albums that I was obsessed with,
Yeah.
but that was the first one I bought with my own money.
That's awesome. And then what was one of the first live shows you ever went to that was like specifically one you wanted to go to?
The first one, I'm really lucky. So my best friend's dad knew the owner of like the Staples Center back then.
Okay, yep.
So we were really into Pink Floyd in high school, and Roger Waters had a show.
Whoa.
And yeah, we got to go to see Roger Waters perform The Wall, and it was incredible.
That's awesome.
I was 17.
Oh, dang. That's a big first show.
I was so grateful.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then I guess before we officially get into it, you've already kind of touched on the fullness of your story to this point. So if you've already answered it, we can move past it. But do you have a defining moment in time where you decided you wanted to take music like more seriously?
Yes, actually, it happened this year. I was a teacher. I am still, I guess, a teacher. Yeah. I'm subbing now. So.
Gotcha.
And the reason why is because of what happened. So basically, I realized this last year, as a teacher, I love teaching and I love math and I love the kids. They're the best part of the job. But I realized that I had let myself put off what I really wanted to do with my life. And what I really want to do has to do with art and creativity and music especially. And I felt myself becoming less of that person the more I was getting involved in teaching. And it feels so selfish of me. It feels selfish, but at the same time, this is my life.
Yeah.
And I want to live it the way that I think that I'm meant to live it. And I feel deeply that art and music is my calling, and I would be, if I just let it pass, I couldn't live with myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I understand why you would feel. I think we all kind of have that in us where it's like the need to like do the requirements of life versus the things that bring us fulfillment in life.
Yes.
But I think it's also important because the fulfillment in life is what allows us to make the required things more reasonable. Like
exactly.
If you're able to meet them in the middle. And I mean,
exactly.
I'm a bit of a hypocrite because I like work full time, but I also I only do this outside of work. So it's like I'm like, why can't people just give up everything they're doing? But it's something where it's like once you find something that like genuinely fulfills you in life, it makes everything better if because you get to kind of show up as your full self.
I agree.
The rest of the time, and so I think that's important, and I think that's awesome.
I agree. I think I made a good decision. And kind of like what you said, I don't know. Your route kind of changed, so I don't know where this is going to take me necessarily. But I'm really open to it being in the direction that I want it to be in, which is towards something that is promoting creativity and the arts and music.
Yeah. I mean, I'd never like to use the old verbiage of, it's the journey, not the destination. But I think when people fall in love with the process instead of the product, then the end goal is always more, it's not like it doesn't have to exist as a vision. It just has to be knowing that there is something coming.
Yeah. Exactly. That's how I feel.
But now let's go ahead and let's get into you in the present day. And we're going to get a super easy one out of the way. How'd you pick the name?
So my daughter likes this one. So Not Milky is actually, so it's kind of a play on a couple of things. When I was breastfeeding my daughter, there was a time when she was calling me over, but she was saying, Milky, Milky. And I told her, my name is not Milky, it's Mommy. And I don't know why that stuck, Not Milky. When Kenny, the engineer at the studio my first time, when he asked me, what's your name? That was the name that came to my mind. But another reason why I also really like it is because there's a candy in Japan that I grew up with called Milky. And I kind of have a similar style, and I liked that it was not Milky because she's kind of like this commercialized character who is always happy, and I am not always happy and I don't want to be commercialized. So I kind of like the play on that too.
Gotcha. Okay. I love that.
And also, I'm allergic to lactose. So it's another play on that.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of layers in that for sure. It's a fun one too. It's one that when you hear it, you're not going to forget it. Like, it's just like, and it's easy to spell. It's easy to see.
Yes.
And like aesthetically, it looks really cool. So I do this bit where I break down names, and actually I think it's a really fun one.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
But now let's go ahead and let's get on into your writing process. And we're going to break it up into chunks, but we're going to start right at the beginning. So when you get inspired, you're ready to make music. What are some of the things you do to get a track started?
It depends. A lot of times, if I feel inspired, I open up my laptop immediately. And I kind of approach it. I usually don't have a plan going into it when I first start a track. Mm-hmm. I like to set up my Logic in a way that in case I feel like recording vocals, I'll have that ready. Mm-hmm. And then I will just pick a random instrument, and if I have a melody or something in mind, I will set the tempo, and then I will just pick a note or something. And usually that note will turn into something else. And that's kind of how I approach songwriting. It's kind of haphazard, I know it sounds like, but I feel like it's harder for me to plan out a song than to just be inspired by like improvisation. Yeah.
Well, then I feel like you have such a strong like musical background. Like I imagine you understand the general rules of like theory and note structure and things like that just from your time. So it's probably a little easier for you to just kind of pick a point and run with it.
Right. Yeah. I feel like a lot of it I'm not really thinking about though. Yeah. So I don't think about the technical theory behind a lot of stuff. And to be honest, even though I was classically trained, I don't know a lot of theory, and it's kind of my thing that I'm now trying to hone in on. I know stuff, but I don't know.
Well, more, I mean, I feel like you have a familiarity with it.
Exactly.
Like just from the foundation of being in music so early.
Yes, and like playing music with people and in orchestras, I feel like set me up in a way where it's in there subconsciously. And that's why I was saying earlier, it's like when I think too hard about it, then I start to lose the magic.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it is there. And I'm sorry, I feel like I reeled off.
You're answering the question just fine. And then I guess once you get a track finished writing, so it doesn't have to be like recorded and released per se. Mm-hmm. Once you've gotten it to where you can kind of start learning it and like getting it like prepared to perform, how long does it usually take you to feel comfortable enough to be able to perform a track?
To perform a track, as Not Milky, I've actually never done. I've done like improvised live performances, but I've never actually performed like songs that I recorded.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that is my goal for this coming year, basically, is to really take the stuff that I've been recording and set myself up in a way where I feel comfortable performing those things solo or with just a drummer.
Gotcha. Okay. That's a cool addition to have to it.
The drummer?
Yeah.
I would. Okay, so right now I'm in the middle of a project with a drummer that I've been fangirling over for a really long time. And they reached out to me to ask me if I wanted to work with them.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's really exciting. And the reason why I bring it up is because their skills are so incredible with drumming that I've never trained myself in drumming. I feel like the beats I make, they're not coming from the perspective of a drummer, and I feel like they just have this knowledge from experience that it's hard to. It's their thing, And I feel like having a drummer sets the tone for the song, or kind of it helps solidify the song, I guess. Yeah.
Well, that and drumming in the world of musicianship is so different in a way from like the instrument, like the more melodic way.
Yes.
Because the way that like the repetition that has to happen in it, the like change in dynamics and percussive elements. And while there's a lot of overlap for sure, the approach to it and like the learned methods are very different. So having somebody who is rooted in that fundamental really is able to kind of expand in a way that just like the more melodic brain doesn't think of all the time.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and I mean, drummers are definitely a hard thing to come by. So it's cool you're able to like lock in somebody who is kind of in that space and is down to work with you.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. It's like, it's one of my little dreams come true.
That's awesome. But now let's go ahead and let's talk about your music. And so, I checked out, music on Spotify. It goes back to 2022. And I went from the beginning to the end, so these notes are written as from the start to now.
Wow.
But when I was checking it out, the big thing that stood out to me is it's very polished. It's like
really?
It's like lo-fi, but not low fidelity.
Okay.
And that I thought was a really interesting take. It's got, a bunch of the like good, like the simple, clean, like Adventure Time sounds in the beginning, but at the same time, it's very full. The pace is really interesting. Like it didn't feel just like it was meant to be like background sound.
Okay. Yes. I see what you mean.
And the bass in particular was big. Like that was something that I'm a bass player myself. So like that's something I always kind of listened for. And I felt like that presence was huge.
Yes, I'm big on the bass. Like I love heavy bass. Yeah. I was really into doom metal for a long time. And I feel like that has inspired a lot of my art.
Yeah. And then, like I said, as I was going through it, I realized up until 2023, you kind of had this like very locked in sound. It sounds like that was the one you were working with Tim, whose artist name I've forgotten now.
Sir Always.
Yes. And then in 2024, there was a bit of a shift.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, I was actually going to just say that I worked with a lot of producers.
Oh, yeah, gotcha.
But he was the one that I started with, and that I did a couple of songs with, and also that's Kenny, who was the engineer. I also did a couple songs with his beats.
Gotcha. Okay, so they were from kind of all over.
Yes, but then I also bought beats online and stuff like that. So there's a producer named Cloudbeat. I love their stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, your beat selection is super strong. Like big fan. But also, you were great on all of them as well.
Thank you.
But then, like I said, I noticed in 2024 there was a bit of a shift, and it moved into more of what your current sounded, and we'll talk about your most recent stuff, Day and Night 2, or 1 and 2, 2 and 3. There we go.
2 and 3.
Been a day already. And they came out a month apart, so they're still relatively near to each other. So we'll kind of talk about them as collective work. And the way I phrased it here was enjoyably chaotic. Like there's fun. There's these like interesting, like strong, like elements to them that are like. They're like, I don't know if you're familiar with the artist Poppy.
I don't think so.
But it's like, it's engaging, it's lightly dissonant, but at the same time, it's very, what's the word I'm looking for? I didn't even have this written down right. There's like a direction. It's got like an intention behind it. And like, as you listen to it, you can feel what's happening. And I think that's something that's a little harder to achieve, especially when you go for sounds that have a bit more grit to them. Because a lot of people prescribe to like, the edginess of the sound is the point.
Right. I see what you mean.
But listening through for your music, I felt like I said, there was movement, there was direction, there was intention, like the way that you presented all of the sounds and the movements, especially between like kind of going back to some of the more soft sounds that you had before and then moving into some of the like bigger ones. It was enjoyable. It was a really fun experience to kind of roll through. And it felt like there was a change at that point. So it was cool to hear up to your story for now, or from your story through to now, how that came to be, because now I like have a bigger understanding of that movement.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen.
Yeah, it's really fun.
That.
But I do this bit where I pick out a track I really enjoyed.
Okay.
And I did decide to go back a little bit because, like I said, I went from the beginning to now, and there was one track that I just kept getting stuck on.
Okay.
And I this might be an odd one, but Great Escape.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that is my least favorite song.
Oh, no.
No. But I mean, I still like it. But
Okay.
It is, out of all the songs, maybe my least favorite.
Gotcha. Well, I'm interested to see why. But the reason I picked it is because just the very first sound, just something about it, just the way it starts, just grabbed me. And it was just there was this texture to it, and then
a good beat.
The first sound, like the way the bass comes in, like not right away. Like I think it's like 24 seconds in, and then like the kick comes in, and then like by the 40-second mark, the hi-hats come in, and the track is like fully all together. And like there wasn't a lot happening. Like it's one pace all the way through. It's like slowly things adding, but it was like the choice to take time on everything. Just kind of by the time you get to the end, because it's only 1 minute and 10 seconds. It's a very short song, but the breath in between everything, just kind of it let everything kind of stand out for a full amount of time, and it felt like a really full experience.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. But now I'm curious to know why it is your least favorite.
You know, I just feel like the way I felt at, I guess it sounds to me the most amateur, I guess, as far as like my singing.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I felt, but you know, honestly, I do like that song, and I do like what I did with the vocal. So I don't know. It's just that out of all of my songs, I think it sounds the most like one of the most amateur songs.
Okay.
Like that, and I Am Perfect. That's another one. I kind of clumped those two together because those are kind of like the beginning days. Yeah.
I gotcha.
And that was the reason why I think is because that was when I started recording vocals on my own and not in the studio. And so I guess like the mixing and all of that was done by me. And I guess I feel like it was very amateur when I look back on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, from the listened experience with no knowledge of that, it definitely did not seem that way.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I love that aspect of music. That's why I put out a lot of stuff too, because I don't know if I'm not like necessarily, like I love all my music in like a non like cocky kind of way. It's just I wouldn't make it if I didn't like it.
No, I mean you should like your own music. It'd be terrible if you're like, I don't like anything I put out. You know what I mean? But also I think you've had an intention in your sound. There's a care and a presence in your sound from literally the very first track.
Thank you. You know, that reminds me of something you had said earlier that I liked. You said that it's an enjoyable chaos. And I often describe, when I'm not describing my music as a genre, I describe it as dreamy, romantic chaos. And I feel, I don't know if this is the reason why, but I feel like my ADHD has a lot of influence on it because that's just how my brain is working. Like I like a lot of stuff going on. When I sit in a room to focus, I enjoy when there's a lot going on in the background. Like
gotcha. It's like the fan, the TV.
Yeah, the TV.
There's like a water fountain. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like there's something that is kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It puts you in a sort of a trance when you're surrounded by a lot of noise. And I like that you can kind of pick up on these other little melodies and stuff like that, even though there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
I know, and going back to what I was saying about music, I know that it doesn't, like, it's different for everyone. Not everyone is into all of the chaos all at once, you know? So it's not going to hit home for a lot of people, but it's okay. You know, there's other music too.
No, totally. And I think that right now in particular, and we'll get into, there's a question that kind of gears around this, but it just brings up perfectly. Right now in music, I think there's an understanding of just people being willing to experience something regardless of like what it presents as. So like genre is kind of going away. It's such a like fluid experience in that realm. But I think that right now there's this need for music to have an intention. Like that's why I really like to use that word for it, because when people are trying to do something, a lot of people now are able to see like what they're going for. Music, a lot of listening audiences have become much more intelligent in the way that music is created and can see kind of the source code and what it's going to lead into. They can put those pieces together.
Right.
But also I think that it's one of those things where an experimental sound or a sound that isn't exactly like the norm, those are the ones that can evolve as long as people stay the course. And then it becomes something that is just once it finds its polished place, once it finds its refined balance, that it just turns into this thing that nobody even is prepared for.
Right.
But it explodes into this like amazing concept or like resolution from the concept.
Right.
And so like those kinds of sounds I think are like, those are some of my favorite to find and experience because just knowing what they will become and being able to kind of see that from the start is so exciting.
It is. Yeah, I totally agree. And I kind of feel like these EPs that I've been dropping this summer are kind of like I call it day and night because it's kind of like my old, like you said, there was a shift. I feel like it's me in the middle of being between day and night and figuring out what the next day is going to look like, I guess.
You should make your first full album called Afternoon. But I do have a regular question I ask at this point. We kind of tangented away. But I am curious to know, what are some of your favorite songs?
Okay. Some of my favorite songs are from are songs that I did with other producers. I really like Daisuki and Ishoni. Those are two of my favorites. Out of the songs I recently released, one of my favorites is Upeksha, which I sampled Thich Nhat Hanh. I sample him a couple times in some of my songs, and I just love how his voice sounds with the music, and I feel like it's super fitting. And I just really like that. And also another one off of that same album, I think it's Day and Night version 3. It's the first song, The Longest Day of the Year. I have a Great Gatsby sample in there that I love using samples. I feel like when it creates kind of a story for you, and the way I pick samples is very like serendipitous. It's like I just let myself sit with the concept that I'm trying to portray, and then I will let my memory kind of take me to places. So it's like I picked up a book once and I felt like it was the perfect quote that I opened up to. And that was off of Interlude 2, which is another one of my favorites. I was about to make that one an instrumental song, and then at the very last second I added vocals, and it was kind of related to the sample or the quote that I read in one of my earlier songs, but yeah, so those are, I guess, my favorites right now.
That's awesome. All right, and then let's talk about some new music you're working on, stuff that's not out yet. And I know you have something coming up very soon.
Yes.
I don't know. I think this will have come out right after that.
Okay.
So people will be able to hear it by that
Yay.
point. But tell us about new music you're working on. What can we look forward to as far as like directions you're going with that? Maybe some like differences or similarities.
Okay. So the one that's about to be released, that I feel like has a little bit more of a poppy or like full-on pop song in it. Well, I don't know. That's my interpretation. Yeah. I'm not good with genres.
Me neither.
But I do feel like I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. It's very similar in the vibe of the other Day and Nights, but I think that my vocals sound more poppy on this most recent one that I'm about to release. And so this is my Day and Night series. And so I started with 2 because I felt like 1 was all the stuff that I already did. And then 2, 3, 4, I'm going to have done like within the next couple of days. And then my goal is to have Day and Night 5, which will be the last in the series. So not sure if I'm going to really take my time to put that out, because I have like this momentum going right now. And I like to put things out when I'm under that momentum.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I'm probably going to put out Day and Night 5 next month.
Okay.
But not in September, but in October.
Yeah.
And so that is my thing, where I'm hoping that will sound a lot better than the 2, 3, and 4 Day and Nights, or just more like polished, like you said, and more, or I don't know. We'll see where it takes me.
Oh, I gotcha.
But one thing that I'm super excited about is what I was telling you, my collaboration with my the drummer that I'm working with, Nadine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm super excited about that. Like, so excited. It sounds so good already. We're almost done with our first track, and it sounds like something I dreamed of being on.
Yeah.
So I am really excited. It's a lot of, I don't know if people call it like, I don't, again, genres are bad for me. I know that people who are into D&B would like this style, let's say. Yeah,
Gotcha.
it's like a lot of heavy electronic, really fast. And yeah, I love it so far. So I'm excited to share that one.
I'm definitely looking forward to it already. It sounds rad.
Yeah, thank you.
But now let's go ahead and let's take a moment and let's zoom out. Let's look at kind of music as a whole.
Okay.
What are some of the things about newer music, either as far as like new music goes, or at the very least music that's new to you, that you enjoy and you're finding like inspiration in at the moment?
Some artists that I find a lot of inspiration from are like Smino. I like well, first of all, I just love his voice. Yeah. I love the tenor of his voice. I don't know if that's the word.
The timbre?
Timbre?
Yeah, I don't know.
Again, with the
music words.
Yes, music words.
I like how it sounds.
I like how it sounds. I like the deepness of his voice. But then he also makes, he also has a different pitch when he's making certain voices. I feel like he's very playful with his voice. And I like playful singers. And I find a lot of inspiration from artists like that are kind of just being themselves in their art and being playful about it. Like, I don't listen to a lot of Baby Keem, but I like the movement he's a part of. I like his development. I feel like he's doing whatever he wants with his art, and I think that's really dope. And Toby Lou, his stuff is incredible. I mean, that's not new to me, but I feel like he's relatively new. Yeah. But he was like one of the first, when I was looking for beats, Toby Lou beats was one of the first things I searched. I love his whole style. I think he's also super playful with his art, and really involved in his visual art too, which I like. Let me think. I love Green Tea Peng. I don't know if that's how you say her name, but her style is also really dope and really chill, and like confident girl vibes. Yeah. And then there's a new artist called, I think she goes by Chloe. I know her Instagram handle is like Chloe the God or something. She recently blew up, and I think she has an incredible voice. She kind of reminds me of Green Tea Peg's voice a little bit. Very like soulful sounding. And like kind of has like this reggae vibe, but more like R&B. It's interesting. I love it. Yeah. And then Amare, I don't know if that's how you say her name, but I love her. She does like dancey kind of poppy music. And like she raps also. I really like her style as well.
Oh yeah, I mean those are all rad ones. So thank you for dropping those here.
Yeah, of course.
But before we move into the next part, this next question is probably the densest question in the interview. Okay. But we've talked a lot about your experience with the music, the actions, the reactions. But when it's just you and the music, one-on-one, what does music give back to you?
I feel like myself when I play music. I feel like I can make music about anything, and I don't care if it's not perfect. I don't care if people don't like it, which is very not me. I mean, that's how I think that I really am, but I have like a lot of anxiety. And so I feel like in my day-to-day, I'm very like nervous and like wondering if I'm doing the right thing for people and if I'm stepping on toes, something that I'm unlearning right now. But because of that, I feel like music gives me a space where I can just accept myself for who I am and accept that it's not perfect and I'm okay with it actually. And I feel like the pressures from society make me feel like I have to not be okay with my imperfections. And I feel like with music, nobody can tell me anything because I believe that music there's no right and wrong. And if you like it, you like it, and that's okay. It's not, I don't like certain kinds of music, and it's not that big of a deal because it's just connecting, and I feel like music gives me a place to just express myself and gives me the opportunity to express myself and like a bunch of different parts of myself. Like I can be, not that I'm like a different person, but I can be like these different aspects of myself. Like I can be hella sad in my song. I can be super confident. I can be anti-social or asocial or whatever is the right word. And I can be sad as much as I want to be. And I just feel like it allows me a space to be, and it gives me that.
Yeah. It sounds like, from what I'm gathering, it allows you to kind of go through the Rolodex of emotions.
Yeah.
It gives you a space where you can feel all your feelings without the preconceived notion that there is a judgment on the other end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oftentimes when I write music, especially lyrics, afterwards, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is how I felt about that situation, or that is a feeling that I had down there, or that is a thought that I had. And it's like, it just comes out of me. And then afterwards, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is my real me, or that is what I was intending or hoping to say.
Do you think that's why you choose to put out as much music as you do? Because it's kind of a way to continue to expand on the presentation of yourself?
I do. I feel like it makes me want to expand. Yeah. Like putting it out makes me feel like, okay, now what's next? What's next?
Yeah.
What else can I do with the music to further express myself?
Gotcha. Okay, well, thank you for going through that. I usually don't expand too much on that question, but I really liked your answers.
Thank you.
But now let's go ahead and we're going to move on to some hypothetical questions. Okay. And for these, sky's the limits. The questions are all made up, so the answers are allowed to be as well.
Okay.
But this first one's pretty straightforward. If you could work with any one person, the only requirement is they have to be alive.
Okay.
Who would you want to work with, and how would you want to work with them?
I mean, one person, just because we brought him up earlier and I'm a huge fan, is I would love to work with Toby Lou one day. That would, I'm manifesting that will happen one day.
I would love to get Toby Lou on the show. So definitely, if one of us has it happen first, mention the other person.
I will.
Oh yeah. And then subsequently, who's a local artist that you're aware of that you haven't gotten to connect with yet, but you would like to?
A local artist. Okay, so I'm a huge fan of this producer named Chong the Nomad, who is based in Seattle, which I was shocked to find out after moving here or after moving to Washington, because I had been a huge fan of Chong the Nomad while I was living in LA. And I was told by a friend that they had a free show. And so I went to it at the Seattle Art Museum this summer. And it just inspired me as another Asian American female. I felt like very inspired by the fact that she sings, she makes her own beats, she plays the harmonica like crazy well. It's so dope. But yeah, I would love to work with Chong the Nomad one day. Yeah.
Let everybody know what to do. Put the at in the comments. Let's see if we can make that happen.
Thank you.
And then for this next one, like I said before, sky's the limits, and it's pretty literal in this sense. But if you could perform anywhere in the world. And you wouldn't have to worry about crowd access or building stability or power. It was guaranteed the best lineup, guaranteed the best show. And it doesn't have to be a venue. It could be anywhere. Where would you want to perform?
I think it would be... I don't know the exact place, but it would be somewhere out in the nature, where there was literally nothing for many miles, and beautiful, maybe Ireland or something, because I heard Ireland is beautiful. I've never been there, but
I've heard similar things.
Yes, I've heard great things, and I've seen great things, and that would be great. Or there's a waterfall. If we're being really hypothetical, there's a waterfall between, I think it's Argentina and Nicaragua or something. I don't know. I'm really bad at geography, so maybe those places aren't even like close to each other. But there is a waterfall in Latin America that is super beautiful, and I've always wanted to visit there. And I'm sure playing a show in that kind of a place, if the sound, works out and everything, would be amazing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I know, what's her name? Aura? I forget her name, but there's an artist who recently put out a video where she did a performance like that.
Oh, really? That is so dope.
I think it's somewhere in like Ireland-esque.
Oh, okay,
my knowledge, I should have this information much more locked down.
Nice.
But if you ever want a good example of something like that, she actually did do it.
Okay, I will check her out.
I think it's Aurora.
Okay, yeah, sounds familiar.
Yeah, she's like this small little person with blonde hair, and she's very popular. I'm
really
names in general, so you'll find it, I promise. But I'm leaving it here for you for that. But then to wrap up the hypothetical questions, if you could get one more album from anybody, they could be alive, they could be dead, they could have not put out an album in 100 years, they could have put out an album yesterday, who would you want an album from?
That's an easy one. It would be Yura Yura Teikoku, which is this Japanese psychedelic pop band from like the 90s and 2000s. They're not together anymore, but the singer, Shintaro Sakamoto, he's still doing shows like solo. But I love their work, and I felt like they were so good together. I would love to hear more. But the reason why they split was just because they felt like they had done their thing, basically.
Well, hey, that means that there is a possibility they can always come back. Yeah, if there's no bad blood in the water, then there's always room for that.
Exactly. You never know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. All right. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start wrapping this up.
Okay.
What can we look forward to between, let's say, now and March?
Definitely at least one EP. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, so you'll get my last EP off of my Day and Night series. Mm-hmm. And then after that, I'm going to kind of be in hibernation mode, building up something special.
Oh, okay.
So hopefully by February. Yes.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
And then go ahead for this next one, stare straight at the camera, tell everybody how they can find you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. You can find me on Instagram at notmilky with a 0 for the O. You can also find me on TikTok and YouTube, but I don't post a lot on YouTube. So I'd also all the streaming platforms, Apple Music, Spotify. Please look me up and check me out. Thank you.
And then any other plugs, any other shout outs, anybody else you'd like to put on while you're on here?
It's a lot of pressure.
I mean, you've named a lot of people in the episode.
If you're looking for murals, East Side of the Brain, they're awesome and incredibly talented, and they work really fast. Let's see. Oh my gosh, I don't know. It's a lot of pressure. The Groans, Nadine's in that band. They're really dope if you like punk music. And also, again, sorry if I'm mistaken the genre, but it's really good. But yeah, that's all for now.
All right. And then we've got one last question to go. But before we do, I'm going to steal the camera for just a second.
Okay.
As always, y'all, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. And one more shout out to the Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, the final question. And this is entirely up to your interpretation.
Okay.
But what is an album you feel is more on the obscure side? So it's a deep cut. It's one not a lot of people would know, but it's one you think everybody should know.
So I would say Do We Make of This by Chong the Nomad, since I brought them up earlier. Yeah, I love that album, especially I think it's EM is one of the tracks. Love that one. And I can't think of it, but they're all really good. Yeah, they're great.
No, that's an awesome rec. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Well, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get up on out of here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you for having me, and thank you for listening.
And this has been another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. I'm Jimmy.
I'm Not Milky.
And we're signing off. Later, y'all.
That's a wrap. This is not a podcast. This is a show. Keep jamming.